Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Tuesday here on the Big Daddy Liberty Show's Vuka Nazo. Yes, that's right. Vuka Nazo, where we begin your news day with solid analysis that you'll get nowhere else. By the way, if you're loving Vuka Nazo, where you begin your day here with me, how about you join our friends over at the Daily Friend? They come to you Mondays to Thursday from 1:30 p.m. live, and they'll help you round off your news day. Now, with that being said, remember you can reach us here at the BDL Show on our website at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you can also pledge some support. Why don't you do that? Please get some support in. 100 Rand a month. Let's build a subscriber base here on the show who do exactly that. And you can find all that detail on our website. Now, with that being said, enough with the jibber jabber. Let's get straight into the news. Oh, the ANC is broke. Goodness me, what a symptomatic, if you will, story that I found today in the in Independent. Of course, we all know the ANC is broke. That's not necessarily the revelation here. But what is the revelation is that its employees, who are obviously sick of not being paid either on time for their salaries or even at all of their salaries, have taken the ANC to court. And the ANC in court not only pleads poverty, but starts making up a whole bunch of excuses for why it cannot pay its employees. Here's my takeaway here before I read a quick quote from its Treasurer General, Paul Mashatile. If this is a party that cannot pay its own employees at the party level, please pray to tell, dear ANC voter, why do you think they suddenly are able to manage the finances of the country at whole, including your finances as a tax-paying individual? Vuka emakandeni and stop voting for people who are clearly showing you in real terms, insofar as even their own people, their own staff, that they do not care about you. But hey, don't take it from me. Let me read a quick excerpt here in the papers from a statement made by Paul Mashatile, who, as I mentioned, is the ANC's Treasurer General. Stating in court papers the following: that the reasons for not paying include, quote, the decreasing share of public funding that the ANC receives from the IEC, that's the Electoral Commission of South Africa, declining electoral support between 2009 and 2019, where it lost 34 seats in Parliament and 37 seats across provincial legislatures in the country. And he also continues to say the changes in the formula for allocating public funding to political parties as introduced by the Represented Political Funding Act. He goes on to explain. Now, according to Mashatile, the Act, this Political Funding Act, imposes obligations to declare funding and its sources, placing limits on the number of donations that can be received by political parties from donors. Now, here's the kicker. He says certain categories of funding are prohibited, end of quote. It's that last line for me, which is very interesting. Why? What do you think it is that would make the Treasurer General of a party complain about a piece of legislation that is meant to shine light on how and where political parties in this country get their funding? And by the way, this is not just an ANC issue. All parties in this country are subject to this legislation, passed by them, ironically, which was meant to improve transparency. But now here you have a Treasurer General of the party bitching and moaning about the fact that there is more transparency about where certain categories of funding were received by the ANC and how those have clearly dried up. It's amazing what happens when we stop the corrupt from being corrupt. All right, I take you now to Pretoria, where the president, of course, in an address to the country live, outlined what he called were his plans to implement the state capture inquiry's recommendations. You remember, of course, the state capture inquiry was led by now Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, and that particular commission came up with numerous recommendations, indeed 350 such recommendations. Let me quickly read an excerpt a write-up in EWN as to the president's speech and what was in it. And let me just quickly say this before I read it. Don't expect much. This is Cyril Ramaphosa we're talking about. This is an ANC government we're talking about. Don't expect much. But anyway, the EWN reports as follows. The Commission made over 350 recommendations, including, of course, criminal investigations, the recovery of assets, as well as constitutional and legislative changes. Now, let me just pause here at this point and put on screen a graph that the government, has put out outlining some of the victories it has achieved insofar as implementing these recommendations. Yes, some notable, but really in the grand scheme of what was stolen and the overall theft and the state capture in this country, a drop in the ocean. In any event, it goes on to read in this EWN write-up that on Sunday night, the president outlined, of course, which recommendations were being implemented while few others were being put on ice. President Cyril Ramaphosa's plan to stamp out the rot at state institution has also come under fire from some political parties, rightly so, with Ramaphosa's plan including stricter rules to govern state-owned enterprises, for example, end of quote. And therein lies the kicker, dear viewer. It's that last particular line, which is some of those recommendations have been, quote, put on ice. Of course they have. And it lends itself to the point I was making at the beginning of this, which is do not take seriously any pronouncements by the president or even any ANC government that it will suddenly deal with state capture or corruption and the rot in the state, the very state capture, rot and corruption that it is responsible for in government. If you're expecting comrades and cadres to chase after meaningfully other comrades and cadres, then there is something wrong with you and you're either living a dangerously naive fugazi of an existence or you're just willfully ignorant because maybe you are a cadre who benefits from the rot. So that this is my takeaway from this all. As Cyril Ramaphosa is trying to butter up his chances of being re-elected as ANC president at the ANC conference at the end of the year, of course, therefore, there will be some recommendations he won't implement. It's likely those that will harm his opportunity of re-election. And the others, which he will implement and probably will do so rather publicly and much too much fanfare and much showmanship, he will do because he's trying to dribble you. So that this is where I'll conclude the story. Hashtag don't be dribbled. All right, in our last story for today, I take you to Durban now, where over the weekend, the leader of the third largest political party in this country, a political party which is red in tooth and claw, communist, a useless ideology, if anything, including its useless chop-in-chief of a leader, Julius Malema. Well, yeah, that same character doing what he does best, sadly, which is to issue inflammatory language, always inflaming racial tensions in this country. What am I referring to? Well, as I said, speaking at what they call people's assemblies, this is these party gatherings that Malema has been addressing across the country. He basically argued that the violence of last year's July riots, specifically the vigilante violence in Phoenix, should have been met by violence in return by his party members, an inflammatory thing which begs the question, how on earth do we have political leaders in this country who openly advocate for violence? It is mind-boggling, it's stupefying that this is the kind and caliber of people who we call leaders in this country. You'll remember, of course, the July riots where over 350 people dying over a bloody and violent period of riots in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng, to which of that number, 36 people were killed allegedly by vigilante groups in the Phoenix area. That's a small minority of the number of overall people who died. But Julius doesn't care about the lives of people, actually. He just cares about the narrative. The narrative being ignore the fact that 350 people perished, focus on the small grouping because it serves a political narrative of his, which is to go after minorities and blame them for all wrongdoing, presumably in this case, blame them for death during the July riots. It's a shifty and snake oily and very sneaky way of political discourse that is used by the likes of the EFF, and in particular Julius Malema. He's quoted, of course, in EWN as having said the following: "What did the EFF do to respond to the killing of Africans? Because not killing must be responded to through the exchange of roses." That reads awkwardly, but nonetheless, the violent people only understand the language of violence. Isn't that ironic? Malema continues to say that he raised concern that a year later, there have been no successful prosecutions. He says, "We speak today following the July riots in KwaZulu-Natal. No one has been held accountable, even after killing our people. They roam the streets freely. They do as they wish." On Friday, the Director of Public Prosecutions in KwaZulu-Natal announced that only 5 murder dockets linked to the unrest are under investigations. So then therein lies the actual contradiction here, and the brazen, or blatant rather is the word I'm looking for, misunderstanding by Malema as he seeks to racially inflame the situation as opposed to being rational and call for something rational. It is rational to call for the NPA and SAPS to pick up their socks in investigating the vigilante. Those crimes that were of vigilantes in that part of KZN, absolutely. There should be many more cases brought forward and people brought to justice, including of the overall 350 people who died. This focus by the EFF and Malema on what happened in Phoenix only, that's where I'm calling them out as effectively, slyly, and indirectly targeting Indians and suggesting that Indians somehow were the bigger problem of the July riots. We need to disavow ourselves from people who are using this to grift and to basically inflame racial tensions. If you're serious about what happened last year in the July riots, which left this province and the city of Durban scarred, then you should be calling for actually proper investigations and bringing to book those responsible for the 350 people who died and were murdered during that period. That is real justice, and not this racial wordplay and shifty racism that we're seeing from the likes of Malema and the EFF. All right, folks, that's it from us here at Vuka Nazo. Let me know what you think about the stories on this, the Tuesday edition of the show. A reminder, of course, that you can find us on our social media platforms. All of those details are in the descriptors of this video, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, the descriptors down there, or Facebook, where it's all up there. Information on how to find us on social media is in the descriptor. Now, with that being said, also we have a website. Reminder. Find us at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you'll catch all our latest episodes, including Liberty and Friends. Did you miss Liberty and Friends? On Sunday, a very interesting topic was raised on that one, so make sure you watch that, please, and stay up to date with what we do here on the show. With that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.